In horror movies, you usually get a warning when something bad is about to happen. The signs are all there. The music changes. The camera angle shifts. When it happens, I always cover my eyes, but not completely. I want to know, what is behind that door? I know that it's going to be bad. And yet, I want to see. Chapter 1. The Storm.
Country to country, ocean to sky, woods tall as treetops, rock and roll and high.
On New Year's Eve of the year 2020, a giant storm of tumbleweeds overtook a stretch of highway in Washington state. The storm was so big that the state police spent 10 hours digging up cars and trucks buried under thousands of plants. It was beautiful. Tumbleweed is a tough and highly invasive plant. Its roots can creep 20 feet down, drawing water even from the driest soils. That's why it can grow where almost nothing else can. Every winter, the roots of tumbleweeds dry up, allowing the plant to break free. Tumbleweeds are so light that the wind carries them for hundreds of miles, scattering seeds with every roll. Washington state is no stranger to them. They grow, spin, and tumble across all the western states. But in the area around Richland, tumbleweeds are a more serious issue. Here, this symbol of western nature conceals another, invisible, danger. A 9-minute drive away from the 2020 tumbleweed accident, and you'll find yourself here. This is the Hanford site, a toxic relic of the Manhattan Project. The plutonium produced here powered both the world's first atomic bomb and the Fat Man bomb dropped on Nagasaki. Now, the Hanford site is harboring the aftermath of the 20th century warfare rivalry. 56 million gallons of high-level radioactive waste in aging underground tanks. 70 years ago, waste was a secondary issue. We didn't know how to properly manage it yet, but something has to be done. We wanted solutions, fast. Hanford's waste was buried on the spot, sealed away in massive underground steel tanks. Well, not all of it. Some waste got dumped into the ocean. Once, the Navy even fired a machine gun at waste barrels because they wouldn't sink. Yeah, that's a real story. But let's get back to dry land. For many years now, decaying Hanford tanks have been leaking. Radiation gets into the soil, tumbleweeds can suck it up and roll off, spreading radiation across the state. There's a small chance of this happening, but even if it does, the radiation levels would be minimal. But still, it makes people nervous. That's why at Hanford, tumbleweeds are being watched, chased, checked, buried, or burned. Contaminated weeds are stuffed into bags, crushed and disposed of in low-level waste trenches. Others are thrown into fire. The Hanford site cleanup is a multi-stage, long-term, costly process that began in 1989 and is still not finished. In the Department of Energy's own words,
Hanford is rapidly advancing capabilities to address 56 million gallons of radioactive waste stored in 177 underground tanks.
And it's not just Hanford. The Savannah River site in the U.S., Sellafield in the U.K., Mayak in Russia, the first generation of nuclear storage facilities starting to fail everywhere. But it wasn't supposed to be like this. All of the U.S.'s high-level radioactive waste was meant to be moved and buried in one secure, carefully chosen remote location. All of it. So, what happened? In the the relatively brief span of our nuclear power history, we have produced tens of thousands of tons of high-level radioactive waste which will remain hazardous for longer than the pyramids have existed. Till the late 70s, we hadn't given it much thought. It was more fun to make radioactive cosmetics and glow-in-the-dark everything. But in 1979, the reactor of the 3 Mile Island nuclear station melted down. You can listen to the story in a much more uplifting tone.
It was the first step in a nuclear nightmare. As far as we know, at this hour, no worse than that. But a government official said that a breakdown in an atomic power plant in Pennsylvania today is probably the worst nuclear reactor accident to date.
In reality, it was a minor accident, but everyone got really scared, and regulations began to tighten.
The Nuclear Regulatory Commission has already begun a complete investigation into today's accident.
The Nuclear Waste Policy Act of 1982, which I'm signing today, provides the long overdue assurance that we now have a safe and effective solution to the nuclear waste problem.
In 1982, the Nuclear Waste Policy Act established a plan for managing high-level waste, burying it permanently in a place so deep and so dry that water hadn't reached it for millions of years. It takes time to find a place like this. A lot of time. It takes even more time to convince taxpayers and officials that the proposal is safe and worth their money. But in 1986, the Bolsheviks' infamous desire to be thrifty led to the Chernobyl disaster, a warning for the whole world. It was time to act. Chapter 2, There Will Be Judgment. In the middle of the 19th century, a group of pioneers was heading south, enchanted, as were many, by the promise of gold in California. It was too late to safely cross the Sierra Nevada, and they were going to have to wait out the winter in Salt Lake City. That's when they learned about the Old Spanish Trail, a route from the legends based on the paths of the 16th century Spanish explorers. Though only one of them had traveled the route before, they decided to take their chances. They came all this way, there was no stopping now. And to move even faster, they made a shortcut. Straight through here. A 2-week trip turned into a 2-month trip. Water was nowhere, literally nowhere, to be found. When their last oxen died, they abandoned their wagons and walked further, in the unbearable heat. As they were leaving this place, one of them looked back and named it Death Valley. Death Valley is one of the driest places on Earth. In fact, this whole region is. The Sierra Nevada mountains block moisture from reaching this area. The average yearly rainfall here is less than 6 inches. That's partly the reason why this region is often chosen for nuclear experiments. Rain doesn't fall here. Wind doesn't blow. The dryness, the isolation, and the vast empty landscapes create ideal conditions for storing something dangerous. Notice this area with no landmarks? This is the Yucca Mountain. In 1987, only a year after the Chernobyl disaster, it was approved as a deep geological repository for high-level radioactive waste. Yucca Mountain was supposed to start accepting waste by the end of 1998. That waste was to be sealed in corrosion-resistant containers and placed in chambers about 300 meters underground, where the dry environment and stable geology would keep it isolated forever. But what does forever mean? Well, it's not literally forever. Nuclear waste becomes less harmful with time, but depending on the isotopes, it could be 10,000 years, or 24,000 years, or 1,000,000 years. Till then, no one is allowed inside. But how can we ensure it? Of course, the U.S. Department of Energy will keep everyone out, as long as there is a U.S. Department of Energy. As long as there is a U.S. Humans have only started keeping track of history about 5,500 years ago, and look how many things have happened since then. What will happen in twice this time? How can we make sure that future people will not dig this place up? You may think that this is an engineering problem. Thick walls, deep tunnels, but the pyramids had all that. One of the most famous pyramid raiders, Caliph al-Mamun, didn't find an entrance, so he just decided to carve one. The tunnel is still there, on the north side. Egyptian tombs even had vague warnings, curses for thieves, like, "There will be judgment. Your heir will not inherit. An end shall be made for those who enter." Not much of a warning, but surely it worked for some time. But what if the warnings were not vague? What if it was something like, "Your empire will fall, and you will vote for Brexit"? Would that have stopped these fine gentlemen? What kind of message can stop humans in 10,000 years? Chapter 3. The sun is shining at the cemetery. This is the ionizing radiation trefoil, used since 1946. We know it well. The circle in the middle represents an atom, and the 3 blades represent 3 types of ionizing radiation: alpha, beta, and gamma. In the 50s, we experimented with colors, but settled on yellow. It was proven to attract the most attention. But what if you have never seen it before? I know this sign from the movies and video games, not from real life, but 21% of the world's population don't have a TV, and only 54% own a smartphone. And I doubt people discuss hazard signs enough to spread the word, so to them it could look like a ship propeller, or an air screw, or the sun. Because of this, in 2007, an additional sign was introduced. This is intended to be a secondary alert if the trefoil symbol fails. I think the creators of this did a really bad job. If I had never seen a radiation symbol, then this could read as, "The sun is shining at the cemetery, go right." But how can we explain radiation to someone unaware of its existence? How can you portray a lethal, invisible force with immense longevity, which you cannot see, touch, or smell? And how can you deliver an image so clear, so universal, that it remains understandable for the next tens of thousands of years? This is a challenging problem. The U.S. Department of Energy tried to solve it twice. 2 teams were assembled, one in 1981 and another in 1983. Engineers, geologists, archaeologists, linguists, astronomers, experts in nonverbal communication, and even sci-fi writers were brought together to decide on the best way to talk to the future. This was the 80s. So, of course, many ideas were, well, like in the 80s. Here are only some of them. To create an atomic priesthood that will pass down knowledge about the nuclear sites. To construct an artificial moon engraved with messages, visible in the night sky and impossible to forget. And, internet's favorite, to breed cats that would change color in the presence of radiation, acting as a living Geiger counter. Unfortunately, none of these suggestions were taken seriously. Eventually, both research teams chose to follow a more traditional route. Chapter 4. This place is a message. There are many examples of ancient monument sites that have survived till today. Though we still don't know the purpose behind many of them, a monument is a familiar and somewhat reliable way of transmitting messages across generations. All over the coast of Japan, you can still find 600-year-old tsunami stones telling people not to build their homes any closer to the water. Everything below the stones will be washed away if a big wave comes. Ancient monuments like these can help us understand what makes something indestructible. Hard crystalline rocks such as granite, basalt, and sandstone are proven to be the safest from both people and weather. The bigger the better. Monoliths are harder to destroy and harder to drag away. But what kind of monuments would drive people away rather than towards them? What should such a place look like? To achieve that effect, it should look shunned, poisoned, destroyed, unusable, ugly, uncomfortable. So the natural thing to start with is to look at things we find beautiful. ideal or inspiring, and do the opposite of that. No sky-reaching verticals, no obelisks, no forms of symmetrical geometry, no visible center, nothing perfect. As if its builders knew about the ideal and perfection, but asserted that this place is not about them. Scientists suggested several designs for the entire site. Let's look at 3 of them, each more threatening than the last. Spikes and thorns. These shapes suggest danger to the body. They seem active, in motion out and up, moving in various directions. They are irregular or non-repetitive in their shape, location, and direction. They seem not controlled, somewhat chaotic. Rubble landscape. An enormous landscape of large stone rubble, one that is very inhospitable, being hard to walk on and difficult to bring machinery onto. It is a place that feels destroyed, rather than one that has been made. And my favorite, the black hole. A masonry slab, either of black basalt rock or black dyed concrete, is an image of an enormous black hole, an immense nothing, a void, land removed from use with nothing left behind, a useless place. It both looks uninhabitable and unfarmable. Its blackness absorbs the desert's high sun heat load and radiates it back. Dangerous and man-made. These are the first 2 messages that the future visitor needs to receive. But looking dangerous and man-made is clearly not enough. The main message should be, what makes this place dangerous? To transmit this message, scientists suggested to engrave this text on multiple granite monoliths. You can pause the video and read it. This should be translated to the 6 official languages of the United Nations and the native language associated with the region. It should be inscribed up high, visible, but not reachable. A special place should be left to re-inscribe this text again and again as languages change. But what if something happens and the message won't be updated? What if something happens and the alphabet becomes meaningless to us? Language and science are our best allies, but if they fail, there should be some other signs of danger. Of course, we will keep using the radiation trefoil, but considering its long-term intelligibility is uncertain, we need to find a way to explain it somehow, not with words, but with signs. And this is where it gets a bit Indiana Jonesy. Signs with a clear visual reference are more recognizable as time passes. Pictograms of baggage, food, fire, dogs, mobile phones, cigarettes, cocktails are explicit. They immediately cause us to think of real-life objects and shapes. But there is no real object to explain radiation. One team suggested accompanying each message with drawn faces of fear and nausea. After all humans express feelings similarly, regardless of cultural differences. But the faces idea can only work if the emotions are drawn convincingly. These are not. Fear definitely reads as fear, but only because I'm familiar with Munch's painting, and it's not good enough to be remembered for thousands of years. As for the nausea face, it just looks weird, like someone ate a lemon maybe, but it certainly doesn't convey you can get really sick here. Another team suggested drawing stick figures. Drawing stick figures is another long-lasting tradition of ours. They are universal, easily recognized by any other human. Plus, what we can't say with our faces, we can say with our bodies. Gestures highlight emotions. This guy definitely looks sicker than that guy. But my favorite part of this message system is this. This is a star time map? Let me explain. This map uses an astronomical phenomenon called precession to mark the exact time period when the site was created. Imagine spinning a toy top. As it slows down, the top wobbles in a circle. Earth does something similar. It's spinning on its axis, but the wobble is so slow it takes about 26,000 years to complete one cycle. The direction the Earth's axis points to changes, but really, really slowly, over thousands of years. Right now, the North Pole points almost exactly at the star Polaris, so we call it the North Star. But in a few thousand years, the direction will change, and Polaris won't be the North Star anymore. Every culture that watches the stars will know where the pull for their own time lies. These circles are stars seen from the site. By measuring the positions of the stars, future us can determine how much time has passed since the waste disposal. The succession of faces, from a disgusted one to a neutral one and then a content one, shows the levels of radiation diminishing over time. Can you imagine finding this in the year 12,024 at a mysterious ancient monument site in the middle of the spike field in the desert? Amazing. Very Frank Herbert of us. Chapter 5. The Benefits of Deep Time Thinking. As of today, no spent nuclear fuel has been permanently disposed of. Yucca Mountain never received any waste. Politics changed, then changed again, and $19 billion later, the project was abandoned. The boring machine these builders were so proud of is probably still there. Nevada's former Senator Harry Reid proposed an alternative plan.
Leave it on site where it is.
Leave it where it is. And dry cast storage containers.
If you were smart, what you would do is leave it where it is.
And they did leave it where it was. Now, nuclear waste is being stored locally and long-term all across the U.S. If it's not in Yucca, it's in your backyard. There are several programs for spent fuel disposal in Europe. One is under construction, and 2 are in the licensing process. But each country with nuclear power will have to face this problem. And though advanced fuel cycles can transform the waste, the need for long-term containment is still there. Nuclear waste disposal is a major public scare. That's partially why the Yucca Mountain project died. But nuclear power is one of the cleanest energy sources we have, and, when properly managed, nuclear waste is the cleanest waste there is. Other waste we are producing right now is so much worse. Unlike nuclear waste, emissions from coal power plants go straight into the atmosphere. In just 1 year, coal power plants in the U.S. release more ash than the total amount of nuclear waste ever produced. Coal plants are the single largest source of mercury pollution on our planet, and mercury never loses its toxicity. Fossil fuel waste constantly leaks, spills, and burns, destroying and poisoning everything around it. It has already killed more people than the Chernobyl disaster could ever dream of. Yet, it's nuclear power that we fear the most. During his first presidency, Trump took interest in nuclear waste disposal, but as always, nothing definite was said. Meanwhile, China is building more reactors, Microsoft is restarting the one at 3 Mile Island, and Amazon and Google are buying and developing small nuclear reactors of their own. We may finally be entering the nuclear age, and the disposal discussion may soon begin again. So at some point in the future, we might actually be able to take a photo at the spike field. We are obsessed with restricted areas because we praise curiosity. We explore caves that are forbidden to enter. We take the route from the legends. We explore the depth of the ocean in untested submarines. It seems like we just can't help ourselves. It's hard for me to think about the future. It always seems like we are on the brink of an apocalypse, so why bother? But thinking about nuclear waste disposal soothes me somehow. Even if the bombs start flying and falling and we perish in a nuclear war, the waste tombs we build will endure for thousands of years. They will see a future beyond the apocalypse. And even if all our efforts go in vain and future people do drill that spike field, it means that there are still people. And they are still very nosy. First of all, thank you very much for all your kind comments, subscriptions, and support. We are flattered, thrilled, grateful, and proud. If you enjoy our videos, you can now support us on Patreon. The link is in the description. We'll share cool stuff we've discovered during our research. Think of us as your guides, helping you navigate from the algorithm-driven internet to the internet of your or my choice. As @LapisLazuli458 noticed, in our previous video, we made an embarrassing mistake by using this photo. Viagra was invented after Basquiat's death, so the graffiti here is clearly an homage, and we totally messed up. Sorry for that. Mistakes will probably happen again. Thank you for noticing. And if you want to learn more about why nuclear waste is A-OK, we highly recommend this Kyle Hill video from 2 years ago. See you in the next video.